We're going to just spend the last 15 minutes or so just trying to sum up. Now, either I could speak at the Worlds, or actually, we make use of the fact we have some wonderful people who have been brilliant enough to give up their time and their thoughts to share with all of us their perspectives with regards to collaboration over the last few hours. So what I'd like to do is just open it up to our wonderful panelists. And maybe, Sandy, if I can come all the way back to yourself. I know it's no longer 2 o'clock in the afternoon with you in Perth. It's now a little bit later. But if I start off with yourself, and then I'm going to mix things up a bit, if I can then go to John. But Sandy, do you have any key reflections or aha moments from this session? And then I'll go to John.
Yeah, I think the trust theme was really interesting, I think. So one thing that I've been looking at, so I've been looking at the last few years in sort of my leadership journey. I have two jobs, right? One is to lead a team of 100 people, basically, and to lead the discovery part of what CSRO does. And the other one is the technique. So the other one is the technical piece around that to basically build an environment that facilitates innovation. Um, and what I found is that that trust component is really important to be able to do that. So you need trust, curiosity, and you need to be courageous to do it. And so when we collaborate, we need those three components all the time because when you talk about risk, the mitigation of risk piece is important, but being courageous is really important because you need to look for it or you need to be able to go, okay, my gut feeling or the my risk appetite can't take me there. But you need to be courageous as well to have that conversation with a potential partner, right? So you might be able to overcome it because of these nuances in cultural nuances or things like that that we've been, talking about today. So I just think it's a real lesson in human behavior as to how we can break through barriers to collaborate better, to not leave different regions or jurisdictions behind in our journeys towards net zero, et cetera, et cetera. It's all completely connected. And I think one of the issues that we've had perhaps in the past is this way of siloing our expertise and just hanging out with our friends kind of thing and not moving beyond those boundaries. But this panel today has been really interesting, and I can see lots of opportunities going forward.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much for that, Sandy. John, what about your perspective? And then let's go to Kambada.
Yeah, rather similar. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities for collaboration going forward, but as I raised in my talk, one of the problems is confidentiality in terms of some of the technical data, and we need a fairly large initiative to get over that, even in a country like Ireland, where it's one of the friendliest, most open countries in the world in many respects. From the first talk, I was amazed at the amount of technical data available in Australia. And again, I parrot my own hobby horse that we could look at the old data more than spend money on getting new data in some respects. And finally, the question I posed at the start, I do wonder and really worry about the fact that with all the good talk we're doing here today, when you go to the universities, they're closing down earth science departments. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, John. And I think maybe we'll go to Kambada now, but then let's go to Mike and see if you have any thoughts on that as well in terms of the departments closing down, but also your thoughts in general. So, Kambada, how about over to yourself? You gave a fantastic presentation, but any reflections as a whole, and then we'll go to Mike.
Yeah, I think for me it was great learning from everyone how they approach collaboration, and I think getting it right is very important, not only socially, but financially, because you save a lot of money when people are working well together. And I think it's the way to go when you want to get good results and solutions. So for me, it was very interesting to see the different examples of how the collaboration has really helped the research. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a subject that, or at least a module that should be included in school. Maybe not collaboration, but social skills, because as Claire mentioned, some people have it in them, and so others need to get a bit of a helping hand. So I think that's my key takeaway on that.
Absolutely. And perhaps different disciplines attract different people as well with regards to that. So fantastic. Thank you very much, Kambada. Mike, let's come to yourself, and then we'll bring in Zach to the conversation.
Okay. I mean, just commenting on that recent, the comment about being adventurous, and some people communicate well and some people less so. I think recognizing that and kind of embracing that's really good. You ideally want somebody who's super optimistic, adventurous, and then you always want the person who's slightly kind of not the naysayer, but well, that's gonna be hard. So you got a reality check, but also recognizing, certainly in universities, there's a lot of neurodivergent people that are not great communicators, but they're brilliant scientists. And recognizing that not everybody, I think some of the mistakes academia has made in the past is every professor expects every student to be like them. And it's, if they were all like them, then there wouldn't be any room in university. So it's kind of understanding that's really important. In terms of the John's point about demand for sciences, it's a big issue. It's there are departments closing, there are declining numbers of students applying, and yet industry demand is growing. And so when I talk to schools, we do a lot of outreach at Oxford, especially talking to schools with people from less fortunate backgrounds. I really emphasize this is, you want to get involved in a societal problem and a solution. This is a great field right now. And I think we've had to change, 30, 40 years ago, it was all great. It was like oil and gas, mining. It's really good jobs, some of the best paying jobs you can get from a physical sciences degree, which is great. And then we went through a phase of, boy, look how doomed the planet is. And I think that attracts less students. And now it's a much more optimistic, message. So hopefully it'll change. I think, there's many issues in education in not just the UK, everywhere. Australia has it too. Just we're not funding things properly. Universities are really struggling to exist. You see it in the UK. I mean, Dundee has just laid off 20% of their staff. It is a big challenge, and so I think it's I guess people like me, it's my job to lobby politicians and say, look how important this subject is. And then equally, if you have students sort of saying, I really want to study that subject, then that keeps courses going. But it's not an easy. I think it's a very doable challenge, but it's not. It is a big challenge right now.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And I guess the things like the business model of universities is tricky because it doesn't break even often.
No, and we're asked on one hand to operate like a business, but then we can't, then there's government things that mean we can't operate like a business. So I think the model, certainly in the UK, has to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mike. Zach, what are your thoughts reflecting on today's session so far? And then we'll bring in Erica.
Thanks, Sarah. Look, I think a lot of good reflections and thoughts. I think the one thing that we're kind of teasing around the edge of a lot is the need to build these relationships and build these collaborations or the platform for the collaboration way before the collaboration is needed, so that at the point where you now need to work together, you can. And I mean, mining, I think, has a long history of being really rubbish at this, of going, well, I know I came out of capital projects, and I mean, back in the day where sustainability and social were kind of the last check, as once you'd built all the technical stuff and you'd done all the technical planning, and then you got to sustainability and social, and you went, I can't believe you're keeping us out of starting our project now. I think that's improved. I'm not just taking a run at mining here. I think, but and this is difficult for us to understand, I think, as humans, but also as businesses. We actually need to be investing time, investing effort, investing money in building up relationships with the world that are not necessarily for a specific item, for a specific thing, yeah. I think that would a lot of what Kombata said around understanding these kind of cross-cultural engagements and things. That's how we learn, is we start to build those relationships. We start to understand them way before we need them, way before we want to actually go and dig a hole in somebody's backyard. We already understand them. We already have spent a lot of time really getting to know people. Anyway, that's just my very brief thoughts on that. Thanks, Sarah.
And I guess with that as well, Zach, it almost comes back to what Mike was saying earlier in terms of the surprise was the way in which we collect data and understanding is very different, and that appetite to go and understand a situation from like very, very early on then actually helps to make the decision as to, well, actually, even though there's some juicy rock in the ground, doesn't necessarily mean to say we should go and extract it, or actually, if there is juicy rock there, what might be the best sort of mechanisms that we need, or where do we need some sort of radical change in terms of the mining technique, for example. So what does that mean? And as you say, traditionally, the kind of working with communities has happened quite late, often in those discussions. So brilliant.
Yeah. Only kind of once we know that juicy rock is worth the squeeze, as opposed to happening way up front.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Zach. Erica, how about yourself? And then we'll go to Claire.
Yeah, so what's striking to me, or maybe shouldn't be so striking, but I think one takeaway from our discussions and interventions is that we all think about this in very similar ways. We seem to be very aligned when it comes to respect, to listening, understanding who's on the other side of the table, building trust, sharing what we know, and all of those things. So I think that's, I actually feel quite happy about hearing all your experiences from this. Something that I think was very interesting was what what Mike said about the field work and the social scientists saying that you didn't ask us what we needed. But I think in collaboration, it's super important. And I guess that's where courage comes in, that when you enter a collaboration, you also need to explain what you need. You can't just wait for someone to ask you. It's a responsibility from all partners to actually explain what they need to be able to do a good job. So I think courage is coming in there. Maybe you don't even think that you could ask, but I think it's super important. And then also what Zach said, that I remember a conference 20 years ago where we started to discuss social license to operate. And I said that, but you need to invest in this because it's becoming more and more of a showstopper. And some of the companies around the table looked at me like I was crazy, but now they're doing it. So I think it's also, it's a development, and you shouldn't give up because they think you're crazy at some point in time when you say something. You need to repeat, and you need to show it by example and all of those things. I think I've learned a lot, and I think this was a really good experience for me to hear all of your stories. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Erica. That's brilliant. And Claire, how about yourself?
reflection really is what I'm asking myself out of all this. It's been fantastic to hear everyone's thoughts, but my question to myself is, well, what am I going to do differently tomorrow to help myself, to help my colleagues, the organisation I work with, the organisations externally that I work with, to be more impactful through collaboration. So that's the question that I'll reflect on.
Brilliant. And you're not going to give us the answer, are you, Claire? Because you're still reflecting on it. No, fantastic. Well, I guess just to finish off, does anybody have any key things that they are going to do that's a bit different off the back of this? Everyone's sitting pondering at the moment. I might give Zach a call, seeing as he gave his phone number out to everybody, but I had that already. I think from a personal perspective, I'm really looking forward to, we've got another 3 sessions of this with crops of different people from around the world. So for example, in a few hours' time, we're going to be hearing from some people from North America who are going through a massive change in the context in which they live and work. So I'm really keen to hear some of what they're experiencing, what they're feeling at the moment, because I think that's incredibly interesting. And then building on what Kambada was saying is actually how can I summon that courage to really try and have that empathy and understand what does somebody else need from that collaboration perspective. I know what gets me out of bed and wanting to collaborate, or at least I think I do. But what brings somebody else to the table and creates that trust and respect with them? And how do you find that in a way that is respectful to them? So I think that's a little gremlin that's sitting behind my ears at the moment. So with that, I'm going to put you out of all of your misery in case someone does have something, wave at me now. If not, what I'm going to do is say, okay, everybody, it is now 10:59 UK time, which means it's a different time wherever you are in the world, because today we've managed to have 7 fantastic speakers come and speak with us from around the world. Every person dialed in from a different country. So thank you so much for that. In fact, massive round of applause to all of you, because I think that was absolutely brilliant. In terms of the experience and the stories that we brought to the table, they've come from a whole wide variety of backgrounds. We've got another 7 lined up for you later on this afternoon. So this afternoon session starts at 3 o'clock UK time. So come and take part in that. And as you've seen, we're very much open to people contributing in the chat and also in the Q&A. And we've had quite a lot of people watching immediately on YouTube as well. So thank you very much to all of you with regards to that. We will attempt to sum all of this up. It's all being captured anyway, in terms of the recordings. But when we get to the final session on Thursday afternoon, so in a few days' time, I think, Claire, to your point, I will have a more well thought through answer in terms of what I might do personally as a result of all of this, but very much welcome everybody else's thoughts as well. So with that, a massive thank you to the team behind the scenes who have kept everything going. You are true legends. 1 down, 3 to go. And thank you very much to our wonderful speakers. Round of applause. Thank you very much.